Welcome to Pure Intuitive Talk with me, Trish Smith. I'm a multi-dimensional channeler sharing my gift to assist others to connect and work with their whole being, helping bring them into a beautiful way of high-frequency living. Immerse yourself in an hour of nourishment that feeds your spiritual journey and invites you to embrace your empowered soul. You'll feel armed with new understandings for how to shift from pain to love as we explore topics from shamanic sound healing to gut health. Are you ready to take accountability for the impact that we have on the world around us and learn new tools and techniques to feel whole again? Of course you are, and you're in the right place. Pure Intuitive Talk starts now. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Pure Intuitive Talk. I'm your host, Trish Smith, and today I want to ask us the question, are we who we want to be, right? Are you who you want to be? Am I who I want to be? I think it's an important question for each one of us to ask ourselves. There's so much, right? There's so much that we have to take care of. We're living in a society that is just trying to move too fast. I mean, we're moving at a pace that is unnatural for our own spirits. So most people are hopped up on a lot of caffeine and they're stressed out, and then they take another pill to help them reduce the anxiety and the anxiousness and the stress because they are hopped up on caffeine trying to get a million things done. And so it's just that vicious cycle. So I would like to know, in our society, if everybody starts asking themselves that question, right, what are the answers going to look like? Right? If you ask yourself, am I who I want to be? What does that mean? Am I the person that shows up to things I want to show up to? It's funny because I've been saying recently to friends of mine, kind of joking, right? Like there's the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have it done unto you. And I was joking with a friend a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, yeah, Jesus is probably like, they had one rule. But the truth is, nowadays, because people have gotten so busy, are we treating others how we wish to be treated? Are we showing up in the ways that we're hoping others show up for us, right? And so it begs the question, am I who I want to be? So I had done my end-of-life doula training, I think maybe 3 years ago now, and they went over what the acronym was RUGS. They went over what was considered RUGS during the training, which is regrets, unfinished business, guilt, and shame, right? So regrets. Do we want to be sitting at the end of our life, going through a dying process, or maybe some of us get out of here easier than that, and we just, go in our sleep, which is all of our wishes, right? But when we're laying there, possibly going through a dying process, are we going to be lying in a bed where we don't have a lot of regrets, right? And we're all going to have regrets. But the question is, are we actively being who we want to be so that we're not sitting there with a list of regrets, with relationships that have been severed and broken, and we've broken people's hearts throughout our lives over and over again because of our behavior that we chose not to address, all of that, right? And even down to the little things, right? Are you who you want to be? Are you the person that shows up? Are you the person that when you leave, people are going to miss you and they're excited to see you again? Are you the person that they're like, oh my God, thank God they left, right? And not that we don't have that with some people's small idiosyncrasies, right? I mean, we all have our own personalities. We all have our own strengths and weaknesses and characteristics that are either enjoyable for others or not so enjoyable. But at the end of the day, if we're being a good person, if we're doing the right things, and we just have some character flaws, no big deal, right? But are we being a person who's not checking our behavior? Are we abusing drugs? Are we abusing alcohol? Are we abusing our loved ones? Are we not checking ourselves, right? So there's a spectrum of it, right? There's a spectrum of behavior and personality traits and characteristics that we need to keep an eye on if we want to, at the end of the day, be able to say, yes, I am who I want to be and I love who I am, right? So when we're talking about regrets, right, if we're considering being at the end of our life and we're looking back on our life, and we're asking ourselves the question, do we want to have a list of regrets? No, we don't. Okay, well then what do we do now? Right? Because the only way to prevent laying in that bed at the end of our life without a pile of regrets that have stacked up on top of each other and we're swimming in, how do I fix this? I didn't have time, all of the things that go through one's mind when they're going through their dying process, is to take accountability now, is to take responsibility for our actions, for our behaviors, and take accountability for the person that we are. Again, there's one rule, just kidding. So with that being said, if we're looking at taking accountability for our own behavior, if we're looking at taking responsibility for our own mental, physical, and spiritual health, what does that look like? And for each individual, it may be different. For myself, because I channel divine wisdom, for me, that means spending time with spirit so that I'm listening and I'm getting the messages and I'm getting the direction and the guidance that I need to be living in alignment with what God wants from me, right? And then for somebody else, that may look like going into AA meetings, or that may look like finding a health coach, or that may look like quitting smoking, or whatever it is in your life that you need to change, right? And I have clients that come and sit in my office and they're like, I went and saw somebody and I felt better for a couple days. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And then you start feeling back to yourself, right? Yeah, how'd you know? Well, because unless we're doing our own work, that's what's going to happen, right? So you can go see anybody, they can do an energy clearing, you can feel amazing for a few days, if you're lucky. Sometimes it's just the rest of the day you felt amazing, and by the next day you're like, oh, I feel like me again. Yeah, because you're you, and nobody on this planet outside of yourself is going to be able to change who you are, right? Somebody can make you feel better for a little bit, right? And experience can uplift you, words can encourage you, a person can inspire you. But until we are doing our own work and we're taking accountability for our actions and responsibility for our health, and sometimes that, if we're a parent, that's also continues into taking responsibility for our children's health, their mental, spiritual, and physical health, right? That means putting the right things in our body, not putting the wrong things in our body. There's just too much information out there now on gut health and what these chemicals in our food are doing to our bodies for us to be able to ignore it, right? And I'm grateful with the recent information that's coming out now about our foods and whatnot. I mean, this is stuff that I've been studying for 15 years. And so I'm grateful that it's becoming more, I don't want to say trending, but more popular, and that a lot more information is out there now and people are seeing it and becoming aware of what their food is really doing to their bodies. But nobody can stop you from eating the wrong things, and nobody can force you to eat the right things. So then it comes down to taking accountability and taking responsibility for your health. And again, if you're a parent, that means taking responsibility for your children's health, right? It's my personal opinion that CPS, right, our Child Protective Services, if you're abusing the outside of a child's body, they will come and they will investigate, right? But somehow abusing the inside of a child's body, I don't know why, is not considered a problem. But I do consider it abuse to allow children to eat and drink whatever they want and suffer all of these medical diagnoses from it. It's just the children are not making that choice, right? But if we're doing that to ourselves, right, it creates a cycle. It creates this negative pattern, this negative cycle. So if you are suffering from depression, for example, right, depression is possibly a reaction to inflammation in your brain. Okay. If you're eating junk, right, drinking sugar, putting all of those things into our bodies that cause inflammation, and then you're having depression, and then you're eating the things that make you feel bad, right? That cycle, like, oh, I'm having a hard time, I'm just going to eat some garbage, comfort food. But then what? It feeds the inflammation, then the inflammation causes the depression, then the depression makes you want to eat the things. So at some point, you have to be willing to get off of that merry-go-round. And nobody can do that for you, but you, right? So it's a matter of deciding, I want to be a person who is taking accountability, right? And I mean, if that's who you want to be, if you want to be the person who keeps going through the same things over and over again, then you can be that person. But if you want to be someone who can look back on your life and say, I did it. I pulled myself out of the depths. I changed my diet. I started taking my health more seriously. I started taking my relationships into account, right? Then there's changes to be made. And that's just the bottom line. And that's for all of us, for every single one of us. I spent my 20s, eating Burger King and drinking Mountain Dew and Doritos, and now I feel like I'm doing commercials. Anyways, maybe I shouldn't name drop like that, but it was garbage, and I didn't know any better. And I think it was Maya Angelou that had said, when we know better, we do better, is the expectation and the goal. And so for myself, when I have gained information, I've made those adjustments, and I've learned a lot about gut health. And the truth is that I am intentionally eating well and putting the right things in my body and avoiding the garbage on a regular basis so that I can avoid all of those diseases that come with it later in life, because I want to make sure that I am in good enough health to still continue maintaining good relationships with my family and my children and being able to take care of them, right? At this time in my life, my grandsons are 1.5 and 4, and we watch them. And I am so grateful that I get to do that. But if I wasn't taking care of myself and I needed medical attention and needed help, I wouldn't be able to. And so as time goes on, I have to keep myself healthy enough that I can be well and take care of the people I want to be able to take care of, and also not be a burden to them when I get older because I haven't taken care of myself. So I don't always enjoy the vegetables, and sometimes I want to live off garbage too, but I have the discipline most of the time to avoid those things. And that way I can say, all right, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I like to say that I give myself a 90%, because 10% of the time I'll eat a little gluten here, I'll have a little cookie there, a little bit here and there. But overall, I try to be very mindful of what I put in my body. And so along with the other changes that I've made in my life over the last 20 something years, that's one of them, and one of my priorities, because our overall health is very, very, very dependent on what we're feeding ourselves. So I've got to go to break in a minute here, but I just wanted to throw some of these things out you. I know it's kind of a lot. And when we get back, I would like to talk to you guys about accountability more and what that looks like in relationship and connection, because a lot of people are feeling quite isolated these days. So I wanted to address that as well. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back in a minute. This is Trish Smith, your host of Pure Intuitive Talk. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Pure Intuitive Talk, and I'm your host, Trish Smith. before we went to the break, I was talking about taking accountability in relationships. So there's so much that I could cover here, and I only have so much time. But I feel like one of the most important things is the accountability in relationships, and especially during this time. Like we're in a period of time where a lot of people are deciding people are toxic and cutting them out of their lives. And in the last episode I did was on family estrangement. And so I was going over like, let's define toxic, right? Like, are you being abused or is somebody just, I don't know, being themselves and it's not ridiculously offensive, it's just bothersome to you in particular, right? Are you projecting your own dislikes onto the person's personality, right? And so I think it's important that people are able to discern whether or not they're projecting or the person is actually doing something to them. And it's very clear, right? In an abusive situation, someone's verbally abusing somebody, physically, sexually, all of the different forms of abuse, those are quite apparent, right? But when it comes to someone being toxic and being willing to shut them out of your lives, you should really have some solid ground for that. And ask yourself whether or not you're projecting that onto them or if they really are toxic. So that being said, when we're talking about accountability and we're talking about who we want to be, I've told my boys from a young age, I would tell them, be the friend you want to have, right? So are you who you want to be as a friend? Are you who you want to be as a partner, as a daughter, as a son, as a parent, right? Because the truth is that our relationships should be able to last for decades and decades, especially our familial ones, right? They should be lasting our lifetime. And if we're not capable of having relationships that last decades, then we really want to go in and look inside and ask ourselves, what is it? What am I doing? Am I pushing people away? What is, it about me, my behaviors that are making people not want to be around me? And then take the time to correct those behaviors. And I'm coming from a place of a person that had behaviors when I was young that really did push people away and I'm sure would be considered toxic. Especially after I was attacked and kidnapped, and I was just lashing out. I was having panic attacks all of the time, suffering from depression, and I was not my best self. And so I pushed people away, right? And it was important to me to not hurt the people that I loved the most. And so I took the time to get myself in check. Like, if you can't check your own ass, like you're screwed. That's the bottom line, right? Um, and again, I have, like I said, I have clients that come in here and they kind of want the magic wand waved over their head, and I'm like, we don't have that. Like, there's no such thing. There's no pill for that. There's no magic wand for that. The truth is, we have to do our own work. We have to sit down. We have to listen to ourselves, what's coming up. We have to connect to our inner self. We have to connect to the divine. We have to, seek spiritual guidance from our guides and whoever that is for you. And if we're not doing that, then we're going to suffer the consequences of it. Because like anything else, it's a practice, right? If we have good oral health, it's because we're brushing our teeth every day. We're not putting a lot of sugar in our mouth. We're, rinsing or those things, right? And our life is just like that. Everything is a practice, right? So what we're devoting our time to is going to, sometimes it doesn't improve, right? But it's going to be what gains momentum in one direction or the other. So if we're devoting half of our thoughts to this is never going to work, right? Then we're going to go in that doom's mind. And if we're devoting our attention to things that we want to see grow, whether they're our relationships with others, our relationships with ourselves, our relationship with the divine, we'll watch them grow. So I was talking earlier about the rugs, right? Unfinished business, right? That's the unfinished business. If we're laying in that bed at the end of our lives, is there unfinished business? Is there a conversation that we were supposed to have, needed to have, could have had, would have had, should have had, all those things, right? Um, that is aching us at the end of our life, right? Are there things that you can't live with yourself at the end of your life that you didn't go back and you can't, maybe you can't go back and do if the person's gone or whatnot, but take action on those things now, right? We never know how much time we have, and we want to spend that time here on this planet in these bodies with as much love as we can, right? For ourselves and for others. And by devoting ourselves to our relationships and having hard conversations, right? Reaching out to others, celebrating others, all of those things that come into maintaining relationships. The best time to start those is yesterday. Um, and so moving into finishing that rugs, right? The guilt, right? None of us want to be sitting at the end of our life with a lot of guilt, right? And that's what will come up when we're sitting there with that unfinished business and the things that we didn't do, that we didn't fix. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We can apologize. We can change our behavior. And then when we're lying in that bed, we're not lying there with guilt. We're not lying there with shame, right? Um, and that's the other, the S is the shame. And my my goal in doing the episode on are you who you want to be today is just kind of painting that picture of the possibilities, what those rugs look like at the ends of our life, because I want for you to not have a pile of rugs on your deathbed. And for myself, I try to live my life in such a way that I don't live with regrets. And I have a very minimal list of regrets. And to be honest with you, and I hope this is true for most of you, most of the mistakes I've even made in my life are not ones that I carry guilt over or shame over. They're not, I don't hurt people in ways that, others hurt each other in the world. But even so, it's been important to me to live my life without regret. Um, but the things that I have done that I've made mistakes along the way, I've used them for good, right? I've turned them around. I've taken the treasure out of them. I've learned from them. I've listened to them, and I've used that wisdom to change my behavior, to support others, to build my capacity. And sometimes it feels like a full-time job, right? But the truth is that we are spiritual beings, right? What matters the most is our own spirit and our loved ones' spirits and our community spirits and the people and the living beings on this planet. What doesn't matter is how nice or new our car is. What doesn't matter is if our nails look good, if our hair looks good. None of that stuff really matters at the end of the day. So if you find yourself in a place in your life where you're feeling isolated, you're feeling lonely, ask yourself, am I who I want to be? And if the answer is no, where do you want to start? Right? And you can reach out. I work with people over Zoom, so you can reach out and you can work with me on a coach client basis, and I can help you find where to start. But the truth is that the clients that I have in my office, we're always turning it back to going in, right? Turning it back to finding the answers from within. There are no answers outside of yourself. There are no solutions outside of yourself, right? Nobody is going to be able to tell you who you are, right? So you have to go inside and listen and know yourself from the inside out. And if you can't answer yes to are you who you want to be, then you have work to do, right? And we will make mistakes along the way, right? Here's the truth for me. I love who I am. Okay. Do I make mistakes? Every day, right? But they're not mistakes that I have guilt or shame over because I intentionally walk through life being who I want to be, being the person that will show up, being the person that will support others, being the person that, is thoughtful, thinks of others, maintains my relationships. They're important to me, supporting my family and my friends. So the good news is that I have that going for me because life is, always, what would you call it? A surprise. I swear you never know what's going to happen. Today is actually my 48th birthday. And yeah, so I've been doing some reflecting, and I have to admit that although throughout my life I've been pretty crazy, done some wild things, that there are only a couple of things that I really do wish I could go back and change. And the rest of it I've really learned from, and I've grown from, and I've used it for good. I was telling a friend last night, I said, when I was 14 years old, I promised myself I would never waste my suffering. And I can say that that's true. I have not. Also true, I have suffered a lot. I've suffered greatly. I've suffered deeply. If you've been listening to any of my other shows, you know that I've been diagnosed with PTSD, functional neurological disorder as well, and ADHD. And so I have my days, but I do my best to make sure that I'm not getting my pain on others. And I just think that's the best thing that we can do. Stay open for love, stay open for connection, be who you want to be, follow that golden rule. But we're coming to the end of the time. I hope that today I've been able to encourage you to take the time to sit down with yourself. And if you don't have a lot of time, start making time, because we have this one life, right? And I don't know all the answers. I don't know if, you come back and do it again and all that fun stuff, but I don't want to be sitting at the end of my life going, oh, oops, So I make sure I put in my efforts where I know they need to be put in. And I just want to encourage you guys to do the same. And again, if you're looking for someone to work with, you can reach me at Pure Intuitive Coach, and you can contact me through my website, and we can sit down and look at, where are you at? Where do you want to be? How are you going to get there? Right? Well, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate the opportunity to encourage you. If I've been able to do that today, then my cup is full. You're listening to Pure Intuitive Talk. I'm your host, Trish Smith. See you next time. Thank you for listening to Pure Intuitive Talk with me, Trish Smith, your Pure Intuitive Guide. Come back and join us for encouragement to take responsibility and to connect to your whole being. Remember that every moment is the right moment to choose peace, acceptance, and forgiveness. We all have the courage to look deep within, get real with ourselves, and make upgrades to our ways of interacting with the world. It's been my privilege to share this hour with you. For more information about me, go to pureintuitiveguide.com. That's pureintuitiveguide.com. Thanks again, and we will see you here next time on Transformation Talk Radio.